The philosophy of science delves into the foundations, methods, and implications of scientific inquiry. It tackles fundamental inquiries concerning the distinctions between science and non-science, the trustworthiness of scientific theories, and the overarching purpose and significance of science as a human pursuit. This branch of philosophy examines metaphysical, epistemic, and semantic aspects of scientific practices, intersecting with metaphysics, ontology, logic, and epistemology to explore the relationship between scientific pursuits and the concept of truth. Philosophy of science engages in both theoretical pondering and empirical studies, drawing on philosophical theories alongside meta-analyses of scientific methodologies. Ethical considerations like bioethics and scientific misconduct often fall under ethics or science studies rather than direct philosophy of science topics. Within the realm of the philosophy of science, contentious issues persist without clear consensus, such as whether science can extrapolate truths about imperceptible entities and if inductive reasoning can be validated as yielding definitive scientific knowledge. Philosophers in this field also scrutinize particular philosophical quandaries within specific sciences like biology, physics, and social sciences, including economics and psychology. Some philosophers even leverage contemporary scientific findings to draw conclusions about philosophy itself. While philosophical contemplation regarding science dates back to the era of Aristotle, the distinct discipline of the philosophy of science crystallized in the 20th century post the logical positivist movement, which aimed at establishing criteria to validate the meaningfulness of all philosophical statements and objectively evaluate them. The philosophy of science has been significantly shaped by figures like Karl Popper, who critiqued logical positivism and contributed to establishing contemporary standards for scientific methodology. Thomas Kuhn's seminal work, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, disrupted the conventional view of scientific advancement as steady accumulation, proposing instead that progress is contingent on a paradigm which encompasses the inquiries, notions, and methodologies defining a scientific field in a specific historical period. Following these influences, the concept of coherence in science gained prominence, with theorists like W.V. Quine advocating that a theory is validated if it can contextualize observations as components of a coherent whole. Moreover, debates persist about grounding scientific pursuits in axiomatic assumptions like the uniformity of nature, as advocated by thinkers such as Stephen Jay Gould. Varied perspectives exist on the existence of a singular scientific method, with proponents like Paul Feyerabend arguing for the inclusion of all approaches to science, even explicitly supernatural ones. On another front, examining science from a sociological vantage point, scholars like David Bloor and Barry Barnes shed light on how knowledge is developed. Additionally, a strand within continental philosophy scrutinizes science through a rigorous analysis of human experience, offering a different lens to understand scientific endeavors. Philosophical inquiries within specific sciences span a wide array of topics, from contemplating the nature of time prompted by Einstein's general relativity to assessing the implications of economics on public policy. A recurring theme lies in investigating if the terms of one scientific theory can be reduced within or across theories. For instance, whether chemistry can be reduced to physics or sociology to individual psychology. Fundamental questions in the philosophy of science manifest with added specificity in distinct scientific disciplines, such as foundations of statistics questioning the validity of scientific reasoning, or the philosophy of medicine debating what should qualify as science and what warrants exclusion. Overall, the philosophy of science grapples with intricate questions surrounding the essence of scientific endeavors, the validity of scientific reasoning, and the interplay between empirical observations, theoretical interpretations, and scientific methodologies. The philosophy of science has a rich history stemming back to ancient thinkers like Plato and Aristotle, who delineated between approximate and exact reasoning and introduced various forms of inference. Fast forward to the 11th century, where Ibn al-Haytham immersed himself in optics through meticulous experimental testing and geometric applications, particularly studying light's reflection and refraction. Roger Bacon, heavily influenced by al-Haytham, is often credited as the pioneer of the modern scientific method, emphasizing the essential role of mathematics in grasping natural philosophy. Francis Bacon, not to be confused with Roger Bacon, made significant contributions during the scientific revolution by introducing a new logic system in his work Novum Organum, veering away from the traditional philosophical syllogism process towards experimental verification to disprove alternate theories. In the 17th century, René Descartes reshaped scientific knowledge by prioritizing reason over sensory experience in his Discourse on Method. Conversely, Isaac Newton in 1713 emphasized the importance of deriving propositions from phenomena to establish generalities through induction, dismissing the need for hypotheses in experimental philosophy. This radical assertion against causal hypotheses influenced subsequent generations, but faced opposition from philosophers like David Hume in the 18th century, who challenged science's capability to determine causality. The 19th century saw Auguste Comte making significant theoretical contributions to the philosophy of science, setting the stage for future developments. Moreover, the writings of John Stuart Mill in the same era played a pivotal role in shaping contemporary scientific method conceptions and anticipating later scientific explanations. The rise of logical positivism around the early 20th century, embraced by physicists, defined the field for decades, advocating for testable statements as the only meaningful ones and rejecting metaphysical interpretations. The movement aimed to revolutionize philosophy into a new scientific realm, particularly emphasized by the Berlin Circle and the Vienna Circle. Logical positivism's portrayal of scientific language as solely referencing observable entities faced criticism over time and evolved into logical empiricism. The aftermath of World War II witnessed a softer version of logical positivism under Carl Hempel's leadership in the U.S., emphasizing the covering law model for scientific explanation devoid of causal inclinations. This era marked the significant influence of logical positivism on analytic philosophy, establishing philosophy of science as a distinct subdiscipline with Carl Hempel's contributions playing a crucial role. Thomas Kuhn's landmark work in 1962, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, presented the concept of scientific progress occurring within paradigms. He proposed the notion of normal science-solving puzzles within existing paradigms and revolutionary science leading to paradigm shifts. Kuhn's historical analysis and paradigm-centered approach shed light on how scientific communities operate and evolve, sparking profound debates within the philosophy of science realm. The philosophy of science extends into various approaches, including naturalism, coherentism, and the sociology of scientific knowledge. Naturalists advocate for the scientific method as the sole means of investigating reality, grounded in assumptions about objective reality and natural laws. Coherentism posits that statements derive justification from their coherence within a systematic framework, challenging the idea of isolated theory testing. Postmodernist thinkers highlighted the social factors influencing scientific methods, emphasizing the constructed nature of scientific knowledge. Continental philosophers have also contributed significantly to the discourse on science, with figures like Nietzsche and Heidegger questioning the essence and implications of scientific pursuits. Their perspectives, intertwined with themes of lived experiences, power dynamics, and historical contexts, provide alternative lenses through which to view scientific endeavors within broader societal frameworks. Analysis involves breaking down observations or theories into simpler concepts to enhance comprehension. One form of reductionism recognizes that scientific explanations can be achieved at lower levels of analysis and inquiry. For instance, a historical event may be elucidated through sociological and psychological perspectives, which can then be further detailed in terms of human physiology, chemistry, and physics. Distinguishing between legitimate reductionism and greedy reductionism, Daniel Dennett highlights the importance of acknowledging real complexities and avoiding premature generalizations. Concerns surrounding the neutrality of science touch upon which areas are investigated, shaping the inclusivity of scientific exploration. By excluding certain demographics from scientific studies, there is a risk of undermining the consensus necessary for robust scientific inquiry. This exclusion ultimately renders such studies unscientific, as they perpetuate bias and hinder diverse participation in scientific endeavors. From questioning the existence of mathematical entities independently of human cognition to exploring the nature of mental processes in psychology, the philosophy of various sciences serves to deepen our understanding of the intersection between scientific inquiry and philosophical inquiry.